Welcome in, listener. You're listening to a segment from the Slumpbuster podcast with Ju-Ju Dre. Find the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Store, or our YouTube channel. Enjoy. I think it's time that we kind of look into our Week 4 NFL predictions. So, Aundre, how's it feeling, man? 2 weeks in a row. I've gone the edge on you, man. I'm nailing these dog picks right now. I didn't mention it earlier, but Daniel Jones over Tampa in the upset. Got that one. Pick Kyle Allen against Arizona on the road. Got that one. And then I also picked the Redskins against Bears. I didn't do so well on that one. But
No, you're doing – so I will let everybody know that in general I tend to go with like statistics and like computer models, right? And I'm like, oh, these would obviously be, a good choice, right? Like the Packers – at home that have been performing extremely well, and the Eagles that have been struggling. It was like, it just makes sense statistically, right, that the Packers would win that game. And no. So, Julian, you have been killing it on these dog picks. I don't know how, but that being said, just wait. We've still got plenty of weeks left.
Well, we're 4 Thursday night games in the books, and all 4 times the underdog has took the win. So this is I should say I was 0-3 in Thursday night games, as were you. Well, 0-4 now, but
yes.
So I was 0-3 in Thursday night games before this game. I decided to go with the Eagles just because I thought to myself, I saw this team going 13-3. Do I really see them starting the season 1-3? That was kind of like my gut feeling when I looked at this game ultimately. And the Packers, they've been playing really well, but they weren't really beating teams up. So I just kind of went with my gut on that one and chose the Eagles. With that said, it was probably one of the most entertaining Thursday night games we've ever had the luxury of really seeing since Thursday night football has really taken off.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of like talking about your thoughts on this game.
No, it was good. I mean, you had good offense. You had pretty decent defense, right? It even started off, unfortunately, I forget who it was that got hurt, right? But you could tell that that both teams were playing with passion. Like, there were some hard hits early on. I hope whoever it is, they had like a neck and a head injury.
It was Jamal Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that he's okay. It did look pretty nasty, but I thought it was an extremely exciting game. And then Aaron Rodgers, though, like you can start to see that he's making mistakes towards the end of the game.
Yeah. So Matt LaFleur has gained the Pete Carroll comparisons these days for his decision to throw the ball 4 times on the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't think that decision is necessarily going to help Aaron Rodgers in his relationship moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But also, too, how do you think Aaron Rodgers feels about that, given you would think as a star quarterback, he would love the opportunity to hit the team on his back and win the game on the 1-yard line, and instead he comes up short.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, we talked about this a little bit earlier when we talked about Cam Newton, right? Is that there's some guys that are not performing to the level that they used to be able to perform at. And so now people are really disappointed in them. And I think that's starting to happen with Aaron Rodgers. You would figure in that situation, because we've seen him throw Hail Mary passes into the end zone and be able to score a touchdown with 0 time left on the clock. And so we've seen him perform at that level. And now you're telling me you can't pull a touchdown out when you're on the 1-yard line, right? And you get 3 chances to do it. And so I think it's a little bit disappointing. I think we are starting to see just a little bit of slippage in Aaron Rodgers' game, which he's performed at a very high level for a long time, right? Like he's still a fantastic quarterback. Like he's still much better than average. But I do think we're maybe starting to see a little bit of the end of possibly Aaron Rodgers' greatness. And that's not to say he's going to be bad and that he's fallen off and jump off the Aaron Rodgers bandwagon. Like he's still a very good quarterback, but he's just not at the level he once was, I don't think.
Yeah, from an Eagles perspective, I think it was very good to see them run the ball. I think that maybe they've gone a little bit too cute with their offense, and that's probably what's been one of the biggest detriments in their struggles, especially when it comes to their struggles with Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. I think that maybe Doug Peterson sees, I have an MVP level type quarterback. I should probably have him throw 30, 40 times a game rather than just, relying on Old Faithful. You went out of your way to acquire Jordan Howard. Give him some run like you did last week. You drafted Miles Sanders. Give those guys the opportunity to perform, and they'll reward you half the time. And you could tell that was what really paid off in the Eagles' game plan against the Packers this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that I'm worried about with the Eagles, though, is they seem to always start off at kind of a serious deficit. So I think they started off last night's game down 10, I want to say, before they scored. Same thing, I think that first game that they were playing Washington, they were down by quite a bit, and they had to come from behind. And that, to me, is just worrisome for a team, right? Like the teams that you expect to be in the playoffs and to go far and to be in Super Bowl contention, you don't like to see them always have to come from behind. Like you'd like to see them get out to a good start and a good lead and maintain that lead. And I think it always happens with like every team. I think every team at some point in the season will get off to a slow start. But to see it happen frequently with the Eagles is a little bit worrisome for me.
Yeah. Well, moving on past that game, let's start getting into this Sunday's action. So the first game we're going to be starting off with is going to be Tennessee at Atlanta. So Atlanta right now is a 3.5-point favorite according to Vegas. I'll start us off with this one. I'm going to pick Atlanta at home. Tennessee, their offense has just been so boring to watch the last few weeks. They have not had any momentum. I'm starting to wonder if that Cleveland game was a bit of a mirage, because when I watched them last week against Jacksonville, Marcus Mariota, he looks like he's going to be a backup the rest of his NFL career at this pace. And when I look at the Falcons, they've been disappointing me. I picked them to beat the Colts last week, but at home, they play completely different. We saw that against Philly in week 2. So I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick the over.
Yeah, I'm going to take Atlanta as well. I think there's also something to say just about the level of talent that Atlanta has versus Tennessee. Tennessee, they can be good. We saw them do very well against the Browns, but I think you're right. They're sort of on like a hangover ever since that time, right? Is that they did a really good job, and maybe they're just like, oh, we did fine against the Browns, right? And in week 1, we had a great week 1, and maybe they're not playing as hard or not as motivated or something. I don't know what it is, but the Titans have not looked as good. So I'm going to take the Falcons, and I guess I'll take the under. I'll say it'll be a field goal game.
A field goal game? Yeah, it's fine. All right, well, did you think we'd be saying this in week 4? The 3-0 Patriots will be going on the road as 7-point favorites to take on the 3-0 Buffalo Bills. Hashtag Bills Mafia. Shout out to them. If they beat Tom Brady at home, how many tables do you think are going to get broken this weekend?
Oh, it's going to move beyond tables. It's going to become like TVs, and anything that you can buy at a store is going to be broken. The chairs will be broken. The tables will be broken.
In any other context, anywhere on God's green earth, throwing your wife through a wooden table would not be an accepted social norm, but something's different in the water up there in Buffalo. I don't know, man. So start us off. I went with the last pick.
Okay, so start us off. I'm going to take the Patriots. I like what the Bills have been doing, right? They've been doing all right, but I don't think they've played the toughest competition right now. This is going to be like their real big test, and I think the Patriots are just going to win it, honestly. The Patriots are the better team. I think it's been a good run for the Bills. I'm happy for their fans. But to go back to the throwing your wife through the table, you get arrested anywhere else if you tell the police, yeah, I just threw my wife off my pickup truck through a table. Like, you're getting arrested. But for Bills fans, that just means you're dedicated.
Yeah, I mean, these wives are actually pretty happy to do this, which is blowing my mind. You talk about some down-ass women. The women out there in Buffalo, yeah, they can have it. They can have it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so I moved Buffalo into my top 10 on my power rankings, which you can find on the slumpbuster.com. Shameless plug. But, yeah, I don't think they're ready to take on New England just yet. Mm-hmm. I think the Bills, it's so early in the season, and I think that they've put themselves into the playoff team contention, especially when we talk about some of the injuries to the Steelers and the underperformances of other teams like Jacksonville and Tennessee. But I think that Bill Belichick knows how to game plan for quarterbacks like a Josh Allen. Give me New England, but I'm just going to take the under on a touchdown game.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I'll take the over just because
you take the under.
Slightly different.
You think the Pats are going to beat them down?
I think they will. Maybe it'll be like a 10-point game. But
okay.
The other thing too is I think there is something to like the big brother syndrome when it comes to the Patriots and literally everybody else in their division, right?
Yeah, that's fair. They've been winning this division consistently for the last 20 years. So
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Patriots, every time they play the Steelers, it's big brother syndrome, and the Steelers can never win against them. And this year we saw how bad that was. So.
Well, we move into another matchup of the undefeateds. This next one here. So Chiefs on the road, 7-point favorites going into Detroit. Now, I mentioned this, and actually, too, I think our podcast was way ahead of the curve on the Detroit Lions. We said they were going to be a pesky team. We said they were going to compete. And we said they were going to be a team you don't want to see on your schedule. And here they are. They should have won that game in Arizona. They should have been coming in this matchup 3-0 themselves, too. But this game might be, well, it's so hard to slow down that Chiefs offense is the problem. As much love as I like to give the Lions, I don't know what their game plan is for doing it. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to hold strong. I think the way Mahomes is playing is just on a whole different level right now. And Darius Slay, their top cornerback for the Lions, he went down last week with hamstring injury. So good luck stopping anyone of the Chiefs wide receivers with a limping Darius Slay and nothing else.
Yeah, no, I'm totally taking the Chiefs as well. I mean, the Lions, even though they're technically undefeated, right? Like they do have a tie and it was against Arizona. And so if Arizona, their offense can generate enough to be able to come back and tie it, I think the Chiefs for sure are going to put them away. And I'll take the over on this one as well.
Did I say over on the Chiefs? Let me say over on the Chiefs.
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
On the record.
On the record. The next one. So we've seen some blasphemy from our fantasy football correspondent, Eris Blakeney. So he sent us his league pick'em. And in this matchup between the Chargers and the Dolphins, he did not go with conventional wisdom. He picked the Dolphins. Keep in mind, and you've heard this frequently and often, Eris himself is a Chargers fan. So it could kind of tell you where his mental state is following that loss to Houston right now. I don't think you guys are friends anymore based off what he was saying on last week's pod, too.
I know.
I don't think I'm friends with him anymore after he convinced me to take his team against Houston. But with that said, biggest line of the week, because the Chargers are 14.5 favorite on the road against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins obviously haven't given us much reason to think that they deserve anything less than that. I don't know. Did they kind of change your mind a little bit with how they were competing against the Cowboys? The Chargers are going to have to go coast to coast in this game, which is a big thing in the NFL. A lot of people take it for granted. It is a morning game. And I think, too, if I remember correctly, remember that the only win that the Cleveland Browns had a couple years ago was the Chargers. So they don't have a record in these games. Did I go first on this last one? Yeah, you got to go with the pick here first. Lead us off, man.
I cannot choose the Dolphins over anybody, so I've got to go with the Chargers. That's a big line, though, and like you're saying, the Chargers sometimes scare me with the teams that they can lose to, right? Like there's been times where I'm like, oh, for sure the Chargers will win, and they disappoint me. But this time, I don't think that's going to happen. The Dolphins are just so bad. I've seen some high school teams that give me more excitement than the Dolphins right now. Though I will say they at least tried to compete with the Cowboys, but I'll take the Chargers. I will take the under, though, on this one.
Okay. Yeah, I love my underdogs, but I'm not even that bold right now to take the Dolphins. So, yeah, give me the Chargers. I'm going to take the under. It's just anytime I see these plus 10-point lines, it's just hard for me to go anything more than that. And what West Coast to East Coast, it's a thing. You've heard it 1,000 times before, but it's true. And yeah, we'll see it. I don't know. I think it's just kind of like that reverse mentality for Eris. Hopefully, oh God, I hope the Dolphins win though. I hope I'm wrong.
Imagine if they did.
Oh my God. If the Dolphins win, I will sign myself up for fantasy football podcast duty this week because I want to be on that show.
Eris, poor dude. Like we might need to watch his mental state and make sure he's doing all right if the Chargers lose.
he might call in a sick like Jalen Ramsey this week if they do that.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So we got the Redskins at the Giants as our next game. So obviously we led off the show with Daniel Jones. Case Keenum did everything he could to make this a Dwayne Haskins versus Daniel Jones game last week. 5 interceptions against the Bears. I thought that at home the Redskins would have looked a little bit better than they did. The Giants are playing with some energy right now. I think it's hard not to pick them in this matchup. I wonder if it's going to be comparable to last year when the Browns were playing the Jets and it became a point where you had a lame duck head coach and Hugh Jackson, lame duck head coach and Jay Gruden. Does he just throw out the rookie because he's just trying to save his job, throws Dwayne Haskins in at halftime if Case Keenum's not performing?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there is something to like, hey, we need to inject something new into this team. Now, it's I think they've gone through a lot of different quarterbacks, right? And so that might not necessarily work here with this team, but maybe you do. And maybe at least from a fun standpoint, right? You get the 2 rookies duking it out. And I think Dwayne Haskins has a little bit of a grudge against Daniel Jones, right? He thought he should have been the higher pick. And so I think it could be fun. As far as the pick itself, though, who do you have?
Oh, I went the Giants.
You went Giants?
Yeah. I'm going to go with Vegas's line, 3 points.
I think I'm going to do the same. I guess I'll take the slight over with the Giants. The Redskins, though, they surprised me with that week 1 against the Eagles, but ever since then, they just haven't looked as good as I had expected. I thought they would have a little bit more fight in them.
Yeah. So when it came to Baker Mayfield this week, he at least won his Twitter exchange with Rex Ryan, but will he actually be able to perform on the field is going to be the question because this Browns team hasn't really looked too good, and a lot of people are starting to really question them. So this is going to be a big game for them, and they are almost a touchdown underdog on the road against Baltimore this week. So Baltimore, too, they're coming off a tough game against Kansas City, but it was under a score game. I don't really feel like the game was ever in doubt that it was the Chiefs going to pull down that W. And we know that the Ravens' level of competition this year hasn't been the highest compared to the Browns, who have had to face Rams, the tight ends, who always came out in week 1 swinging. I'm going to go with the Browns. I'm going to pick them as my underdog. I think that they need to really show something this week. The pressure is on because if they lose this week, then they're going to be 1-3. Next week, they play on Monday Night Football against, the undefeated San Francisco 49ers. No big deal. Don't worry about it. Anyway, coming off a bye week. So they have potential, if they lose this one, to be 1-4, and not a lot of teams make the playoffs off of that. So this is such an important week. I think they play up to the moment. Give me the Browns in an upset.
All right. So to be different, I was wondering where we were going to differ on some of these things. If you didn't pick the Browns, I would have. But for the sake of being different and the fact that Baltimore, I think they've looked good all season long. Even that loss against Kansas City, there's going to be a lot of teams that lose to Kansas City. That, to me, does not drop their stock a whole lot. I'm still going to go Baltimore.
Okay, that's fair. Introducing this next game, so we talked about, again, this guy starring off the podcast, but Kyle Allen, he's going to go on the road for a big test against the Texans. Now, I'll say this, the Texans' pass D isn't necessarily the greatest, so it might be another opportunity for him to shine, even though the Texans are the superior team. Where do you see this game going? You get first pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Texans. I think just a little bit more experience. I definitely respect Kyle Allen, right, after last week's game. I think there is a little bit something to what you're saying, right, that the DBs for the Texans are not the best DB core in the league, but I still have the Texans winning. The Texans are tried and true. They're really tough, and I had them as one of the best teams in the division, so I'll take the Texans.
I think that Kyle Allen has provided some energy, and it kind of goes into what I was saying last week or earlier in the podcast, how if he performs at an adequate level but still loses, what kind of decisions will go in place when it comes to the Panthers. Go ahead and give the Texans the win here as well. Home game, I just think that they're going to perform at that level they need to win this game. I don't have much faith in the Panthers because the Panthers' DBs are also pretty bad too, so it could be a bit of a shootout actually.
Yeah.
All right. Next game. The Buccaneers are going to the West Coast, so a bit of a flip-flop from where we've been with most of these matchups. They are going to be taking on the Rams. This is going to be a 9.5-point line. Give me the Rams in a blowout. I don't really have much faith in the Bucks. Even though they should have won last week, and maybe they played a little bit better than we thought they would. Like, they gave the Niners a game. They obviously beat the Panthers on Thursday night. And like I said, they should have won that game against the Giants if it wasn't for their kicker. So maybe there is something to the way Bruce Arians got Jameis Winston to play this year. But the Rams, they have the experience. They will be able to win a team that's traveling all the way across the country. Yeah, give me the Rams.
No, I'm totally going to take the Rams as well. Did you hear that? I had heard that Bruce Arians specifically wanted that delay of game call so that it would push them back. So then the kicker could make what he thought was going to be an easier field goal from farther away. I don't know how true that is. But that's what I had heard, is that they purposely took that delay of game on that last kick.
So obviously the thing about Gay, their kicker, so he was drafted pretty high in kicker terms.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's just the Bucks? Do you think they just poison the well when it comes to kickers? Maybe Aguayo could have worked out if he was drafted anywhere else.
Yeah, and we talked about this on the podcast. Like, we were puzzled on why you would take a kicker that high. I don't know. Maybe it's the Bucks thing. I wonder, like I said, did they ice their own kicker by, like, that delay of game? Like, if Bruce Arians really did say, hey, no, I want us to have a delay of game penalty, like, did they ice their own kicker?
But, I mean, he shanked it, so it wouldn't really mattered in terms of if he had the distance or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought
he missed an
that
extra.
was bizarre.
I mean, he missed an extra point. In a 1-point matchup like that game was, that could have been the difference there. So, kickers.
Yeah.
I hate them in fantasy football. I hate them in real football. Just a small rant. Okay. So, obviously, I do a lot of artwork for the website and everything like that. Making the cover art for the kicker rankings is probably the most infuriating thing I do in a given week for this podcast so far. I just want to put that on the record. I think Eris just makes the kicker rankings right now just to spite me, because he makes them 24 kickers deep, and no one cares about the 24 ranked kicker. I'm pretty sure he's going to make 32 just to spite me, because he knows my rage against it.
I'm going to tell him to go to the backup kickers now. I'm going to be like, hey, you know what we really need is we need all 64 kickers. So maybe even throw in some punters in there.
I'm going to start throwing hands if I see like anything past 12 moving forward. I'm not even going to lie. I can get like top 5 kickers that you would want on your fantasy team. But that's funny. I didn't know that he was doing 24 kickers deep. And the fact that he does analysis on 24 kickers amazes me. He's that committed to the 4th down squad, as he called them in episode 2 of the podcast. I'm like, I'm done with it. I'm not putting respect on the 4th down mafia, as he called it.
Now I'm going to expect 32 kickers to be ranked every single week from now on. I'm going to text him right now.
Don't you do it. Aundre, you ignorant slut, don't you do it. All right, back into the games.
Okay. All right. Back on track.
All right, so we got the Seahawks. They're 5.5-point favorites going on the road to face the Cardinals. This game's actually a little interesting. So I was very shocked last week that the Saints went on the road into Seattle and laid it on the Seahawks. That was the last thing I was expecting to happen in that game.
With a backup quarterback.
And I give Teddy Bridgewater a lot of credit. I don't think he's going to carry it into this next game. We'll talk about that. But to lay that on the Seattle Seahawks, who I had as a top 10 team, you had as a top 10 team, it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back. Do they just want to lay the beat down on the Cardinals after that game? Still on the road. Kyler Murray might bounce back a little bit. I mean, the thing about it, the Cardinals run a bit of an air raid, and the defensive backs for the Seahawks are really bad. Like, really bad. But counterbalance, the offensive line for the Cardinals is terrible, and you still have Jadeveon Clowney rushing after you. You still have Bobby Wagner up front. So it's going to be interesting to see how that matchup goes. You know what? I'm going to make this another upset pick. I'm going to pick the Cardinals at home.
Wow. Okay. No, I don't see the Cardinals being this level of a team. I think the Cardinals might upset maybe a lower level team, but I think the Seahawks are going to win this one. I think there is something just to the sheer amount of talent that the Seahawks have compared to the Cardinals, and coaching wise, I think they're much better coached. So I'll take the Seahawks. I guess it's another one where we'll differ, but you've been hitting on these dog picks, so maybe you'll get it.
It's just at what point of hitting this do I have to start throwing money? I'll tell you at the point when my bookie comes along with that sponsorship. I got my eyes on you guys.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, man, Juju, you need to like I think we're both above, 500, but I'm like, with some of these underdog picks, Juju, like we could be making some serious money. Maybe podcasting is not the business we need to be in right now.
We can do both. We can do both.
We could, right?
All right.
And maybe more people will listen to the podcast, right? If we can tell that, hey, we've got thousands of dollars lying in the bank.
We got our Germany following. We got this, man. Shout out to the German fans. We see you. We know you listen.
Yeah, all our international fans. I think we've seen some people in like the UK, Germany,
Indonesia.
Yeah. So shout out to you guys.
Next game up, Vikings at the Bears. So obviously the Bears are over 500 team, so we know Kirk Cousins is going to lose this game. Go ahead and give me the Bears. Go ahead and give me the points.
All right. This will be my upset. So I'm going to take the Vikings, and I just think they're the better team right now offensively, though the Bears defense is always very scary. I'm still taking the Vikings.
Okay, that's a fair point. I mean, I don't have much faith in Mitch Trubisky still. He played better, obviously, but I think the Redskins defense is just not good at all. So
yeah,
I think they're the perfect remedy to, like, if your quarterback's struggling. And even in a game where he was successful, we did see his coach kind of go to the sidelines and tell him off. I don't know if you saw that video trending on Twitter.
No, I didn't see that. But I had told one of my friends, so Andrew Kassier, shout out to you, but I'm going to make fun of you. He was like, oh, this is going to be the game where, the Bears offense starts to come together. And I told him, I'm like, one, I don't think Trubisky's like that great, and I don't think their offense is going to be that fantastic this year. But I was like, even if they do pop off, they're playing the Redskins, right? So you would hope that would be the one team that they can pop off against. And so I think that's exactly what it was. Sort of like you were saying, their defense is not that great. So you can have an average quarterback still look great.
Are we going to have to give a Mitch Trubisky apology? Are we going to have to start that episode one day?
So,
probably not.
I don't know. I mean, I think he had a great year last year, but we had even called it. We had said that, hey, he's likely going to regress a little bit this year. We were wrong about Lamar Jackson a little bit, at least, right? Year's not done, but it seems like we're wrong about Lamar Jackson.
I mean, we'll analyze kind of our preseason picks here in a couple of weeks and kind of like see how we're doing. I can already tell you I was wrong on Baltimore. I was wrong on the Packers. Mm-hmm. And I'll eat those L's. Anytime you enter the public sphere, you have to accept you're going to make some wrong opinions. And I've released a few. You've released a few. So it is what it is. You take
exactly.
Anyway, next game up. Jaguars at the Broncos. So Minshew Mania sweeping the nation, but will it travel to the Rockies? No. I'm sorry to jump you on this one too, but I think I'm going to go with the Broncos just because I like what Gardner Minshew's been doing, and I do think that it is a bit of statistical anomaly right now that the Denver Broncos don't have any sacks despite having Von Miller, despite having Bradley Chubb. I think this is the week where they finally crack the lid open on those two. Especially, I don't have much faith in the O-line of the Jaguars. Minshew Mania has been a nice little headline, but Denver's kind of one of the better home environments in the NFL, so I don't think that the Jaguars can keep up over there. So, yeah, give me the Broncos, and I'll stick with the Vegas line, 3 points.
All right, so this is where we're going to differ again. This is going to be another one of my upset picks. I'm going Minshew. Uncle Rico's going to throw that ball over the mountains, bro.
Over the Rockies?
Over the Rockies. He's going to throw the ball over the Rockies. I'm taking the Jaguars.
I wonder – I just have this image in my head of Gardner Minshew enjoying some Coors Light after the game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It seems like right up his alley, that beverage. I mean, I would say Pabst Blue Ribbon, but, hey, he's traveling to Denver, so he might as well indulge.
Yeah, upgrade a little bit.
No, I'm not going to sidebar this anymore. I'll bring up someone in recent weeks of Minshew Mania continues. Stay tuned for a fun story. Anyway, Cowboys at the Saints. All right. So Cowboys at the Saints. Like I said, the Saints, they surprised me last week. Teddy Bridgewater came out firing. They really came in that game motivated to prove that Drew Brees wasn't going to derail their entire season. Cowboys 3-0, looking like I have them right now as my third-ranked team in the league. I'll let you go on this one. You can pick the primetime games to start off just because I've went the last two.
Yeah, I'm going with the Cowboys. They just look really good right now. I give all my Cowboys friends crap just because I hate Cowboys fans, and I think they can be annoying. I do think that they had an easy stretch of their season, right? So we had even said this, right? If Zeke held out, these would, be the bad 3 games for him to hold out against, just because I thought the Cowboys would win those games no matter what. The Saints, I think it does get a little bit more difficult. Obviously, it would be more difficult if Drew Brees was playing. Teddy Bridgewater did a great job. We know he's an NFL-level quarterback, but I still don't see him being able to pull out the win. So give me the Cowboys. And, I mean, you can't, outside of a 2-point game, right, there's not a whole lot of room for under. So I'm going to say give me a 3-point game. It'll be like a field goal.
Okay, so bet over on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with the Cowboys too. I get it. The Saints in the Superdome do have a home field advantage, unlike a lot of other teams, but the Cowboys still do have a pretty good defense there, and I just don't think that Teddy Bridgewater can really keep up. He's going to be good in the long run, developing more under the Sean Payton system. But I think a big primetime game like this lines up pretty well for the Cowboys. Give me the Cowboys. I'm actually going to go under, though. I think there is potential for this to be a 1-point game. I'll give it to those guys in Vegas. They know what they're doing. Next game up, the matchup of 0-3 teams.
I know, and it hurts. It hurts looking at this.
I'm sure it does. I think it's going to hurt a lot of people's eyes to see Andy Dalton in a primetime game in general, because typically it does. But Bengals are going on the road to face the Steelers. This used to have a lot of steam of being a primetime rivalry game in years past. We have seen some good games between these two franchises recently. But the other side of that argument is we've seen those games with Ben Roethlisberger under quarterback, and that's going to be one of the big things. So last week, my Niners gave the Steelers every chance to win that game. Six turnovers in the first half, or 4 turnovers in the first half, 6 overall. And Mason Rudolph couldn't move the ball. He plays a bit of a weaker defense this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Can he win at home? Can he bounce back? Or is Andy Dalton going to get the edge just because he is actually an NFL starting quarterback?
Yeah, so I think Mason Rudolph's going to bounce back. I've got to take my team, especially at home, especially against the Bengals. What I will say, do you know what really went wrong with last week's game for the Steelers?
Tell me about it.
I checked the score. So I kid you not, every time that I don't check the score, right, like my team is winning and everything goes fine, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to check the score, right, and look on my phone and try to watch some plays or whatever, or I'll look on TV right at a sports bar, and my team loses every single time. So we'll be winning, and then we lose as soon as Aundre starts watching the game or checking the score. And so from now on, I'm just not going to watch Steelers games or check the score, and I think we're going to win. So the rest of the season, I'll be cheering for the Steelers, but after they finish their games is when I'll look.
cheering from afar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of these teams has to go 0-4, and I just don't see it historically being the Steelers. They just aren't that kind of franchise, and it is a home game. I think go ahead and give me the Steelers. They're a better coached team at this point as well. I think Mike Tomlin's going to be a bit of the difference maker. I do think Zach Taylor has really impressed me, though, in terms of his play calling for the Bengals. And Andy Dalton's actually second in the league in passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
So they have – I mentioned this, the Bengals were going to be a bit of a glass cannon team this year in the sense that they can score offensively. They do have some weapons around them, and the new offense was going to be good for them. But they still lack a few defensive pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they're going to be able to contain the most motivated team in the league right now in the Steelers. So go ahead and give me the Steelers, and I'll go the under on this 3.5-point line. It's going to be a field goal game. It's going to be an ugly Monday night game.
Yep, I totally agree on that. I've got the Steelers by 3. What I do think is interesting, though, if the Steelers do fall to 0-4, right, how hot of a seat is Mike Tomlin on? Because historically, the Steelers organization doesn't fire coaches, right? Like, we leave them there till they retire. But, I mean, you go from, the playoffs to last year didn't make the playoffs, and then this year, you're one of the worst teams in the league if you go down 0-4, which I think from a talent standpoint, like, you can argue, well, Big Ben got hurt, right? And we lost one of our best receivers and best running back. But in the NFL, like, we see it, like, it's obvious you have to still get the wins. You can't make excuses.
You say that, but I do think that having your starting quarterback go down does give you a little bit more leeway. When Kyle Shanahan lost Jimmy Garoppolo, everyone pretty much throws out last season because he didn't have a starter. I loved seeing what Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard were able to do, but not having your starting quarterback buys you a little bit of room to operate if you're an NFL coach. And I'd like to think that Mike Tomlin's built up enough equity in that organization to be able to withstand a season where he lost Big Ben to a Tommy John injury.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. I think that Tomlin's going to at least have one more year unless the Steelers just look really bad. Like, if they're not even competing in games or they're losing games that they probably should win, then we're going to have to talk about that discussion moving forward. All right. I think that will do it for us, Trey.
Hold on. We got one game that we actually skipped.
Which game did we skip?
Raiders-Colts.
Oh, well.
Not that it's a big game, but
not that it's a big game. Okay, my bad to Raider Nation right now. I guess
they're going to be very upset. In
Oakland
and Vegas.
Yeah, diverse fan base. Like, they have no home in the NFL and they have no home on this podcast apparently. Sorry, Raider Nation. All right, I guess let's talk about this game a little bit. So the Raiders are going to not have another home game till November. That is pretty sad. So I think that kind of like says that this season's just a complete wash for them. The Colts have really come out a lot better than I ever projected them coming in off of the Andrew Luck retirement, regardless of the talent they did have on that roster that we're seeing now. Obviously, I'm taking the Colts. I just don't think that the Raiders will have the stamina to go on the road for the first of 5 straight weeks, which I even believe includes a London game in there. So not looking good.
Yeah, no, that's rough to be traveling that much. And I think just from a mental standpoint too, right? So not only are you physically tired going across the different coasts or to different countries, but mentally you're exhausted. You're away from your family. You're in foreign cities that you're not used to for that many weekends in a row. Can be really tough. So I agree. I'm going to take the Colts, though. The Colts have impressed me, even though Andrew Luck has obviously retired. We did say it. We did say that they're still a very talented team, right, even without Luck. And so I think the Colts are going to win this one. Though I only have them by 3, so I'll take the under.
Okay.